in example 1, we have a function y equals f of x that is over the domain of all real numbers. And so they want me to approximate the coordinates of the relative extrema. Okay, so we do have a relative minimum located at approximately -1.5, -6. So relative min, -1.5, -6. And we also have a relative max located approximately here, and that looks to be maybe 1.56. Now, considering the domain, which is all real numbers, what are the absolute extrema of the function? Well, here my function is going to negative infinity, here it's going to positive infinity, and so actually there are no absolute extrema since the function is unbounded. And again, that's due to the fact that our domain has not been restricted. If I had a closed interval here, then my endpoints could possibly be absolute extrema. In part B, I do have a function g of x over a closed interval. And so in this case, we can take a look at relative and absolute minima and maxima. So let's take a look. I have actually more than one. Relative minima are located at -3, -3, and I also have one over here at 1, -5. Relative maxima, let's take a look. So relative maxima are going to be at -1, +1, and also at 3, 5. Alright, now the domain of this function is actually -5 to +5, and that is a closed interval, meaning that those two endpoints are included, and I know that because they've used shaded circles to indicate them. And so with that in mind, do I have any absolute extrema? So the absolute extrema will be the highest and lowest point. So let's take a look. Absolute minima, I do have one, and that is at 1, -5. So that would be this point here. And then for an absolute maximum, that is going to be at 3, 5. Alright, now in 1C, they tell me to consider both functions and their domains. Where do the extrema occur on the interval or at endpoints? Do the relative extrema occur at the function's absolute extrema? So let's think about what was going on here. Alright, so extrema can occur at the endpoints or on the intervals. It's also possible for absolute extremes to also be the same as the relative extremes. We saw that happened in example 1b. So in particular on g of x, the relative extrema in a neighborhood, the neighborhood is just a local interval, was also an absolute extrema.